Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden, and we're also going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of the country. Now we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, a good few different styles, but I would say that this brewery are still best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but in more recent years they've also been doing some really nice fruited sours and a few imperial pastry stouts as well. So if those are style categories that catch your fancy, then this is one of the Swedish breweries that you do need to check out, and they're actually a very established name when it comes to the Swedish beer scene as well. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have tried from them before on tap. We've never reviewed one of these on the channel though, and I don't know if I actually tried this particular beer. I honestly couldn't tell you. But needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review. And as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head up to Helsingborg, which is a bit to the north of me here in Lund, and we're going to have a look at another beer then from Brewski Mikrobryggeri. So this particular beer is called the pWasser Pilsner. It comes in at 4.7% ABV, and I think from the name you know what style this one is. This is a Pilsner lager. So yeah, I went up to Helsingborg recently to visit my friend Pontus. We had a beer or two at the Brewski bar, and I did actually drink a Pilsner, but I honestly can't remember if it was this particular one. But yeah, I've had this can for a little while. It has been sitting in my fridge, and it was one that I'd been meaning to get around to reviewing actually. I can't remember when this one was released, but this did come out as part of the local Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget, potentially in about October or something like that. So yeah, this is one of the beers I have been meaning to get around to for a little while. But yeah, definitely cool to review my first lager beer from Brewski here on the channel, and hopefully we'll have a few more from them going forward. But let's crack on with this one then and see what it has in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brewski Mikrobryggeri before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Just go to the search bar and put your hometown, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever you like in there. If I've reviewed beers from your local area, they should pop up. Otherwise, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries, and you will find this one in the Swedish playlist along with many other things. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Brewski Mikrobryggeri once again then. So, Brewski Mikrobryggeri, as I've told you already, are based in Helsingborg in Skåne in the south of Sweden, and the company was founded back in 2014. So the founders of the company are Marcus Hjalmarsson, Johan Bridson, Alfred Olsson, Robin Skoglund, and all of these guys were inspired to start their own brewery, having, homebrewed a little bit and having been big beer enthusiasts for a long time. And it was the American West Coast craft beer culture that really got to them as well. But Marcus was originally associated with the High Nose brand of beer that was brewed at Höganäs Brewery out on the Kullaberg Peninsula to the northwest of Helsingborg, and some of those beers are still brewed there, and a few of the original Brewski beers were brewed up there too. But now Brewski have their own brewery in Helsingborg, which is a little bit further south, and the brewery itself is in the old kind of train yard, train depot, whatever you want to call it, south of the central station. And these days they've got a capacity to brew over 100,000 litres of beer per month. But in 2016, Brewski started their own beer festival called Brewskival, and these days it is the largest craft beer festival in Sweden. It might be the largest one in the whole of Scandinavia other than the Mikkeller Festival in Copenhagen. I would need to check that up. But in the first year they had over 40 different breweries, and this has basically expanded year on year. They also used to open up their brewery once a month for what they called Barski. They had a bar in there, but they now have their own bar in the city just a couple of streets away, which goes by the same name, and this opened back in 2018. And I will point out that they do some very good ramen. The chef is Japanese. He knows what he's doing, and he's also a very nice guy. He's from Gifu, but I forget his name. But they also now brew some beer over in the US at Tampa Bay Brewing Company. Mainly their IPAs they're brewing over there so that they get across the US fresh. but they have been looking to open up a bar in Oslo in recent times. Marcus has a distribution company up there called Brewski, which imports Swedish beers into Norway. They recently opened a bar in Helsinki, and they are looking at opening one in Copenhagen as well, from what I understand. But at the moment, these guys are producing in the region of 350,000 litres of beer per year. In Helsingborg, I don't know how much they're producing in the US, and as of January 2023, they've produced around 420 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. Like I said to you earlier, I would say this brewery are best known for the different kinds of IPAs. Back in the day, the Fever series was one that was really well known, where they had a base IPA and they were adding different fruits to it. You know, you had mango fever, passion fever, persicos fever, and all these kind of things. That was a really, really nice series of beers that they did. They haven't done those for a good wee while, if memory serves me correctly. But yeah, in recent times they've been doing a lot of fruited sours, some imperial pastry stouts, and it seems that they've just started brewing some lagers too. So yeah, definitely a brewery to keep an eye on over the next little while. And they were one of the first breweries that I encountered when I came to Sweden back in 2015. So yeah, that's everything I can really tell you about Brewski Mikrobryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, I think that's everything. Let's go on and actually have a little taste of the beer. So as you can see, this one, it's got a nice kind of Swedish flag as the sail. I do quite like the artwork on this one. I might need to keep this can actually, just because it has the Swedish flag and stuff on it. But you can see this beer is in one of these little 330 milliliter Red Bull cans. You can see the top there, nice golden ring pull. But yeah, it looks very, very nice actually. I think it goes together really well. But yeah, 4.7% ABV this one. I think I paid about 25 Swedish kroner for this beer, if memory serves me correctly. But yeah, don't quote me on that, because it was a wee while ago. And like I said, it was released as part of one of the local Osmoskalig assortment releases, I think for October 2022. But yeah, 4.7% Pilsner beer, our first lager review from Brewski here on the channel. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm really curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So yeah, a little bit of bubbles as we opened up there. I could feel the can was a little bit hard, but yeah, I'm sure the beer will be alright. There we go. We'll just be careful when we pour this one so that we don't get a massive head. But I think it's going to behave fairly well. Yeah, seems to be alright. You just need to pour it slowly. And there we are. But this is one of the things I really love doing on the channel, is when you know a brewery for a certain style, and then they release a style they're not well known for. I always think it's really cool to try these things and see how they turn out. But yeah, you can see this one, it is starting to get a bigger head now, even though we've tried to pour it quite carefully. But yeah, I think we should leave it at that for just now. So yeah, this is what happens when you keep your beers for a little bit longer than you should. Yeah, we should have drunk. I should have reviewed this beer quite quickly, but I think I just got overwhelmed with lots of beer at the time that this one came out. But yeah, anyway, I think by the look of it, we have got most of the actual beer into the glass. We just need to let the foam chill out a little bit. But yeah, anyway, as you can see, this lager is poured with a nice 3-finger frothy. I would actually say perfect white head on this one. I'll just let you have a wee look at that. That is obviously going to fade away, and it is starting to as well. You can see that just calming down a little bit, but yeah, perfect white head on this one. But you can see the beer that this beer has poured pretty much as you would expect from a Pilsner lager. So 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of that head there, but overall it does look very, very nice. Yeah, I think the colour of this one is exactly what you'd expect. It's a lovely kind of pale golden straw type colour. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts you put into the beer will also affect the colour of it. But when it comes to Pilsners or nearly any type of lager, come to think of it, you don't really have to care about that. But yeah, this one let's see, looks very, very nice. So yeah, remember as well, the Pilsner beer is a type of lager. It originates in the city of Pilsen in the Czech Republic, which was of course once part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was developed in the 19th century by a German brewmaster who moved to the city. He only stayed there for a couple of years because people didn't like him. But yeah, the very first Pilsner was Pilsner Urquell, of course, the original Pilsner beer. But yeah, it is a lager beer, as we said, and the definition of a lager is a beer that uses bottom fermenting yeast. It ferments at a colder temperature, usually about 8 to 12 degrees Celsius, something like that, whereas ales ferment with top fermenting yeasts, higher temperatures, 15 to 18 degrees Celsius roughly. Don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but to be honest, the metric system's better, so who cares. But yeah, but anyway, certainly looks like a nice Pilsner. It's got a nice little bit of natural haze to it, so I think it's been unfiltered, but there are a few little bits of sedimentary particle just floating around in this one. But appearance wise, it looks pretty much as you would expect of any Pilsner, to be honest with you. More a kind of Brauhaus Pilsner there. You can see it does have a wee bit of a natural haze to it, so more like a kind of Czech Pilsner, Pilsen rather than a German Pilsner, I guess, in some ways, but from the name they're calling it a Pilsner, so we'll go with that. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the appearance of the beer. We'll have a wee look at the aroma and see what we get. I'm not sure how much we're going to get with this head, but we'll do our best. Oh yeah, it does smell very nice actually. So for me, as I've said in previous videos, the main difference for me between the Czech variant and the German variants of the Pilsner that I've often found is that the Czech ones tend to be more kind of smooth and creamy, and the hoppy character, of course, is a little bit more spicy. Whereas with the the German variety, I've always found that they're a little bit crisper and drier and cleaner. So yeah, that's another thing just to think about with this particular beer style. But the for me, this one, it definitely has the kind of crispness and dryness of the German variety, but I'm getting some of the kind of more yeasty characteristics that you'd expect of the Czech version. So I do like that. I do think that goes together really nicely. Yeah, aroma wise, I think this beer is pretty interesting actually. But yeah, let's break this down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer is absolutely a little bit of that kind of fresh, white bready bread crust. Getting a lot of that out of this one. Yeah, lovely fresh, white bready bread crust backbone. That forms the backbone of the beer. On top of that, there's a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker for me. I'm getting that. It is quite a yeasty Pilsner, so that'll be where the crackery notes are coming from. So yeah, fresh white bread crust, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker, a little touch of woodiness to this one too. But then you've also got a little bit of a kind of fresh but still quite crisp white bread. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this one, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, aroma wise, for me, this beer, it's quite the malty side of things. Further back in the nose, you can definitely get the crispness of the Pilsner malt coming out of it. So you can just feel that dryness in the top of the nose. But yeah, the fluffy white bread that's there has that wee bit of crispness too. In the middle of the nose, there is a little bit of there's definitely a little bit of that kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive kind of character as well. So yeah, in terms of the maltiness, I think that's all that we really need to say about it. Yeah, a little bit of bread crust, Jacob's cream cracker, some white bread, a little bit of biscuit, and then the crispness of the Pilsner malt in the back of the nose too. There are a few little yeasty elements in there as well, like a little bit of a slightly farmhousey bready character at the back of the nose, but I'm sure we'll get more of that in the actual flavour of the beer. But it kind of comes across as a little bit like a Keller Pils in some way, where those yeasty notes come to think of it. But yeah, in terms of the hoppy side of things, it's quite it is definitely noble. And there's a few different types of noble hops. You've got the Czech ones, the Sats, Jatets, which is a little bit more kind of spicy. You've got the Hallertau and Tettnangers from Germany, which tend to be like really quite bright. And you've also got the Styrian hops from Styrian Golding, from Slovenia, which tend to be very smooth. You've also got Austrian variants of these. The Upperwiertal in Austria is quite a popular hop growing region. But yeah, this one for me, you can smell the brightness of the German character in these. So there's a little bit of earthiness in there and a little bit of herbal character too, of course. And that's very smooth. That's another indicator of the German hops, the light, the smooth earthiness and herbal character. But then, yeah, you've got this lovely bright grassiness and a little bit of a kind of floral note to it as well. So yeah, I really like how I do really like how this goes together. It gets a thumbs up from me in that sense. So yeah, aroma wise, the the grassy side of this beer is quite nice. The hoppy side of it is good. In terms of fruitiness, it's pretty much what you'd expect. You've got a little bit of the kind of the sort of little bit sultana type quality to it, a little bit of an oily pear maybe, some fresh kind of green apple in there. Yeah, these are all things that you expect of the Pilsner style. It's not the fruitiest of beer styles, of course, but yeah, you are getting little notes of this. There's maybe a little touch of like a lemony, limey zest in there too. But yeah, overall, to me, a nice smelling Pilsner beer. It does remind me quite a little bit of like a kind of Keller Pils type beer, actually. So yeah, as I always say, take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is the pWasser Pilsner, 4.7% ABV from Brewski Mikrobryggeri in Helsingborg here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, it's pretty nice. So, the way this one, it's really interesting. It builds up and it gives you a lot more bitterness and a lot more dryness and things like that into the aftertaste. It really, I can see why. In the aroma, I was really thinking this would be a little bit more of a. It would turn out to be a little bit more like a kind of Czech Pilsner, but no, the cleanness, the cleanliness, the crispness, and the bitterness you get out of this one definitely makes it a wee bit more and more German. It actually reminds me, one of our regular beers in Bishop's Arms in Gustav's in Malmö. One of our regular beers we have is Genstaller Kellerpils, and this beer kind of reminds me of that a little bit. So that's kind of interesting. So, yeah, in terms of the yeah, in terms of the kind of character in this beer, I think it really has that nice. It's got a nice little bit of that Kellery Brauhaus type element to it, and then yeah, you've got the kind of the cleanliness and the crispness and the kind of dryness you'd expect of the German variant of the Pilsner, rather than the more kind of creamy, smooth Czech Pilsen. But I like this. This gets a thumbs up from me. As I say, I really can't remember if I tried this beer from Brewski before, but I think it's pretty nice. And it's good to see lagers are getting a bit more of attention again, as opposed to just everything being about the hazy New England IPAs. So yeah, I do appreciate that as well. So, yeah, in terms of um, the flavour of the beer, brain is not working. Let's just break this down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So, backbone of the beer, absolutely, you've got a little bit of that kind of fresh, white bready bread crust there. That forms the backbone of the beer. It does actually get a little bit more grainy and a little bit more dry the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, I think that goes together pretty well. So yeah, there's a little bit of that kind of bread. There's a little bit of that bread crusty character in there too. So yeah, nice little bit of kind of so say you've got that fresh kind of dry bread crust. Then above that, you get the Jacob's cream cracker type note that I was talking about. Toward the front of that middle third of your palate, there's a little bit of there's a little bit of a kind of woody character in there as well. So yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing. So yeah, as I say, a little bit of fresh white bread crust, a little bit of woodiness, wee bit of Jacob's cream cracker, and yeah, I think it goes together in that sense. But then on top of the the cracker, there's a little bit of a kind of fresh white bready type character in there, and it's the white bread in this one's interesting because it is quite fluffy and quite airy, but at the same time, it really is quite crisp. So yeah, I do like how that goes together too. Yeah, so definitely a little bit of a kind of fluffy, airy, crisp sort of thing coming out of this beer for sure. On the bready side of it, and on top of the bready character in the middle of the palate, if you go to the dead centre of your tongue, you've got a little touch of like a sweet. It's got a little teeny bit of caramel, but it's more like that kind of oily character that it's more like that kind of oily character where that holds the McVitie's digestive biscuit together. It really is like that, but as you move further out toward the edge of the palate, it's got a little bit more. It does have a little bit more of a kind of crisp, um, a little bit of a more kind of crisp, clean mouthfeel to it, or a more kind of crisp, clean flavour to it as well. But yeah, I think that's everything that we actually really need to say about the middle third of the palate. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a good little bit of bready build up in there. It's quite fluffy and, as I say, quite bready. You've got a really nice, you've got a really nice kind of, how would you say? You've got a really nice, just like dryness from the Pilsner malt in there. It really is quite crisp in that sense. And then on the back third of your palate, you've got all the yeasty flavours coming out of the beer, which also have their own kind of dryness to them. And that is really what makes it feel a bit like a Keller Pils for me, this beer. So let's focus on that back third of the palate then. The backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of, you've got a little bit of that lovely bread crusty backbone in there, which is good. Above that, you do get a little bit of the Jacob's cream cracker. Remember, on the back third of the palate, the flavours are a little bit more kind of dry and crisp in a sense. Above all of that, you've got more of a. You do get that fluffy, airy, white bready character in there. And that layer is a lot taller and a lot more airy. But as I say, within the bread, it almost has like a little bit of a slightly peppery type spice, but that's the dryness of the Pilsner malt that's doing that. The dryness of the Pilsner malt is really sitting just on top of that. Then above all of that, you have more of a. Above all of that, you have more of a. I would say, you've got this really airy, farmhousey type bread character coming out of it. It's a little bit woody, it's got a little touch of honeycomb and things to it, but yeah, the back third of the palate for me is actually quite dominant in this beer, just with the dryness of the Pilsner malt and the slightly kind of peppery spice that the beer has. So that's really interesting for sure. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is is really quite it is really quite nice. But yeah, back third of the palate, you can feel that the flavour is definitely taller, and then as you come further forward, it just condenses down and squashes together that wee bit more the further forward you come. But yeah, I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of the beer. So on the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it gets a little bit herbal, and as you push toward the front corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of a kind of floral aromaticity coming out of it, and yeah, you've got a little touch of spiciness too, which I do quite like. Yeah, I think that goes together really nicely. But yeah, around the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, and you do get that wee bit of zestiness. But yeah, it's interesting. You do get a bit more spiciness out of the hops in this beer than I thought you would. So I wonder, maybe they're using a slightly stronger alpha acid German hop in this, like maybe Pearl or Hercules or something like that, rather than the Hallertau and Tet 9 Mittelfrues. That is quite an interesting thing to think about, actually. So yeah, interesting stuff. But in terms of I think that covers the green component. Yeah, as I say, for me, a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal character, quite a spicy floral note, and then round the front curve of the palate, a little bit lighter, more grassy. But let's focus on the front third of your palate. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a bready build up in there. So yeah, nice little bit of bready build up. The base of the front third of your palate, a little bit of bread crust, a little bit of cracker, and a wee bit of bread. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah. So yeah, in terms of the in terms of the in terms of the fruity side of the beer, then for me, the back of that front third of your palate, there is a little bit of in terms of the back the back the back of that front third of your palate. Brain is not working in this video. You've got a little bit of a kind of sultana type note in there, and as you move further forward, it gives you a little bit more of an oily pear. And as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, you've got a little bit of you do start to get a little bit more of a fresh kind of green apple note out of this one, and there is a wee touch of lemon limey zestiness in there, but it's that you do actually, on the front tip of your tongue, you do get more of the kind of bready and crackery dryness there. But yeah, a little bit of sultana, a little bit of pear, and a wee bit of a kind of limey type quality to the beer as well. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is quite interesting. So it gets a thumbs up. It does get a thumbs up from me. So yeah, definitely more like a Keller Pils, this one. I think this does remind me of a German Keller Pils more than anything else. But yeah, let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer is light bodied, kind of midway in the light bodied range. Carbonation is has a bit more of a prickle to it, this one, but that's probably my fault for leaving this beer so long in the fridge. So yeah, I take the blame for that one. But yeah, it is really nice and clean, very crisp mouthfeel. In terms of IBUs, I think this one is I think it's at least 30. It could be pushing the 40 mark. It does, as I say, have a little bit of that slightly stronger bitterness to it. In terms of the malt base, as we said, there's a bit of grainy crispness in there, there's a bit of dryness, and you've also got a nice smoothness, tiny little bit of sweetness to it. So malt base for me is quite interesting. Then you've also got a little bit of kind of nice fruitiness coming out of this one too, which I do really enjoy. So yeah, it's really nice to just see how that goes together, actually, that little bit of dry kind of fruitiness and the little bit of citrusy zesty character too. So yeah, that gets a big thumbs up from me in this video. So yeah, or in this for this beer as well. So yeah, for me this is just like a really nice kind of bitter and dry and yeasty Kellerpils. I think that's a good way to describe this one. So I think Brewski have done a really nice job of this one. So yeah, definitely curious to try more lagers from these guys and see what they're all about. I'd love to see them do a nice kind of like Brauhaus type Helles or a Dunkel or something like that. Something a wee bit more malty could be interesting from them too. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this review. This was the pWasser Pilsner, 4.7% ABV from Brewski Mikrobryggeri in Helsingborg and Skåne here in the south of Sweden. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brewski Mikrobryggeri as well, and we will be returning to these guys at some point very soon, I'm sure. But until the next time, check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.